This is called Iterative Evolution, Aldabra rail. So a rail is a kind of bird, the Aldabra rail. Iterative Evolution, Aldabra rail, and it's in sections. They're numbered sections. I'll just pause a little bit. So starting off from the headline, and don't we all know we can't trust headlines? It seemed a bit like Phoenix, who suffered that fiery death over and over again, each time rising from its own ashes. And don't we all know what that feels like? Don't we all know, we who are willing, who are able to rise again and again? And the article said the flightless rail was extinct. Not a single bird, but an entire species, dead and gone, since the atoll they lived on sank below sea level 136,000 years ago. Then it re-evolved back into existence when the atoll rose again, and don't we all know what that feels like? Don't we all know the work that it takes, the hell that it takes to come back? And as beautiful and hopeful as it seemed when I read it, the cynic in me suspected this is too perfect a myth for our times. This is exactly the story we who are hopeless all need to hear. It ain't over till it's over, by God. Glaciers are melting and sea levels rising. Okay, we admit it, we're fucked. Okay, we admit it, we're doomed. But it won't be the end, because now we know this, oh suddenly convenient evolution, we can re-evolve. Doesn't it sound lovely to re-evolve? Doesn't it sound hopeful to reclaim your island? Doesn't it sound wonderful to return again and again? Oh rare phenomenon, oh extinction that is not the end, oh Hail Mary pass, we'll be back to habit this earth forever and ever. Amen. But I started with anger I didn't actually feel until later. An extinct bird species, the headline says, has evolved back into existence, study says. Study says, so it must be science. And isn't it poetry too, to evolve back into existence? And haven't I done exactly that again and again? And I don't just mean all the pills that I swallowed, all the times that I died. I mean, since I started to believe in my own holy mysticism. Since I started to understand that roller coaster existence is not about falling into perilous despair, it's about the rising. I started to understand that when those issues rose again and again, I am not worthy. I am not meant to be here. I should never have been born. I was able to deal with them at higher and higher levels of consciousness. My psyche was saying, okay, we dealt with this. Now it's time to look again more closely. And I've come to understand that consciousness is kind. I've come to understand the evolution of a healthy mind. We rise and rise again, each time able to fly higher and higher. We do indeed reclaim our islands. And hey, isn't it lovely to know the Aldabra rail evolved to be flightless because it had no enemy? Because it had no predator, because it had nothing that wanted to kill it, because it had nothing it needed to rise above. Oh beautiful, beautiful bird, oh bird who knows nirvana, oh bird who has reached perfection, oh bird who has grounded itself. O bird who says, let the sea rise, it is only water. Let the sea rise, we'll rise too. Let the sea rise, we are one with the sea. We are one with all beings who shall live on this earth forever and ever. Amen. And perhaps that's the point of perishing, dying to know we can live, rising to know it's best to stay grounded. But that's jumping ahead again now. That's telling the story in medias res. If I'm telling it right, I'm telling you this. The Aldabra rail's resurrection stayed with me for 3 full days before I started to question the perfect poetry of the article's headline. Iterative evolution. Did the Aldabra rail evolve twice? asked the next headline I read online, and of course I found the articles online because don't we all know we never reach further than our phones? And I knew that the question was rhetorical. I knew that the answer would turn out to be no. I knew that when a source calls itself How Stuff Works Science, it has already set out to shoot you down. 248 miles north of Madagascar, science says, out in the Indian Ocean, there's a shallow lagoon encircled by islands. Science likes to start at the beginning. Science likes to use big words and to explain things parenthetically, like how many kilometers those miles are equal to, like the Aldabra rail is called Drilolimnis Cuvieri Aldabranus in Latin. It likes to be sure that we all listen carefully, likes to be sure that we all understand who's in charge. Science goes on to explain that the Aldabra rail is a chicken-sized bird, that it happens to be flightless, that it evolved from a still-living bird that often takes to the skies. It explains why some of these birds can fly, why this particular bird cannot, and it takes 288 words to come to the term it wants to define: iterative evolution. To hear some tell it, says science, the Aldabra rail went extinct and then resurrected itself from the dead. That's not what happened, says science. That's not how iterative evolution works. It takes another 217 words to tell us that this is repetition and not resurrection. When the seas went down and the atoll resurfaced, the original bird still flying returned, and having no predator evolved once again to a second species of flightless rail whose bones look almost identical to the first. Science took 244 words to end with this. While natural selection is a powerful force, it cannot revive an extinct species. It cannot bring back the dead. Look, I believe that science can save us, and I believe that science proves nothing at all, which is to say, I believe in nuance, which is to say, I believe in opposing forces, which is to say, I believe that good can be evil, and yes, I believe that evil can be good. I believe in yin, and I believe in yang, and I believe that a circle can be unbroken. Look, Phoenix is a bird that never existed, but think of all it has taught us. The Aldabra rail disappeared, and think of all we can learn. We refuse to believe we are going to die, but the death of the body is real. That's useful to know. The life of the spirit is harder to prove, and that in itself is reason to live. It's useful to wonder. Look, the rail who still lives still flies, and the rail who kept to the ground is gone. Do you think either of them thought for a moment about whether the other was real? Which is to say, I think that when they were hungry, they ate. When their food passed through them, they shat. And I think that we do the same. When we look to the skies, we see birds of all kinds. When we dig in the ground, we find bones. If we lift up the bones, we can use them to beat out a rhythm on drums, beat out a rhythm that will pulse ever outward, beat out a rhythm that some of us will dance to while some of us tremble in fear. Look, some of the dancing is conquering fear, and some of the fear is what keeps us alive. Some of the fear is what keeps us alive. Some of that fear is what keeps us alive. By God, we're here now, and if we stay in this moment, that's the same as forever. And this is what I'm trying to say. I am the rail, both living and dead. I've been to the sky, and I've kept to the ground. I've been here forever, and ever means always. I'll be here forever, and so will you ever. And the rail will keep coming forever and ever, forever and ever. Amen. Be well, stay safe, have courage.